At 3:12 a.m., I watched the same man stand into places at once. One of them was right behind me. I worked the night shift at a small gas station off a rural highway during my sophomore year of college. It was the kind of place truckers stopped at once in a while, but between 2 and 4 a.m., it was usually dead. Just the hum of the fluorescent lights, the lower of the refrigerators, and the occasional car passing outside. That night had been especially slow. Rain tapped softly against the windows, and the parking lot reflected the neon glow. I was alone, like always. At exactly 3:07 a.m., a car pulled in. I remember checking the time because I'd been counting down the hours until my shift ended. The driver stepped out slowly. He was tall, wearing a dark jacket and jeans, hood pulled halfway over his head. His movements were calm, deliberate, not rushed, not tired, just steady. He walked inside without looking at me. "Evening," I said out of habit. He didn't respond. Instead, he stopped at the counter and just stood there, not browsing, not grabbing anything, just staring. At the lottery display behind me. "You need help with something?" I asked. His eyes shifted toward me, but his face didn't change. No expression. No acknowledgement. Then he turned and walked toward the back of the store, the single restroom we had for customers. The door swung closed behind him with a soft click. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Weird, sure. But not the weirdest customer I'd had at 3 a.m. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The bathroom door never opened. I checked my phone, 3:19 a.m. I was about to call out to him when something caught my eye: the security monitor behind the counter. We had 4 cameras, one covering the register, one for the aisles, one outside, and one facing the back hallway. On the screen showing the register area, someone was standing at the counter. It was him. Motionless. I turned around slowly. The counter in front of me was empty. I looked back at the monitor. He was still there, standing exactly where he had been earlier. My mouth went dry. The camera footage wasn't delayed. I knew that because I could see myself moving on the screen in real time. Except the man behind me wasn't behind me. He was only on the screen. A chill crept down my spine. I stared at the hallway camera next. The bathroom door was still closed. No one had come out. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Okay," I muttered to myself. "Glitch. Just a glitch." I leaned over the counter and refreshed the monitor system. The screens flickered black for a second, then came back on. He was still there, standing at the counter, not moving. I slowly turned around again. The store was empty. The only sound was the steady buzz of the lights and the distant hum of a semi. Then the bathroom door creaked open. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I watched the hallway camera as the door swung inward. No one came out. It just stayed open, revealing the dark interior of the bathroom. I swallowed hard and stepped out from behind the counter. "Sir," I called, my voice shaky. "Store's closing soon." No response. On the monitor, the version of him at the counter tilted his head slightly. But the store in front of me remained empty. I felt something shift in the air, like the pressure had dropped. Slowly, I stepped toward the bathroom hallway, keeping one eye on the monitors. As I moved, the version of him on the screen didn't. He stayed at the counter, watching. I reached the bathroom door and peered inside. The lights were off. The room was empty. No feet under the stall. No movement. Nothing. I backed away, my pulse racing. That's when the bell above the front door chimed. I whipped around. The door was still closed, locked. We automatically locked it after midnight. The chime rang again, but the door didn't move. I looked at the monitor. The man at the counter was gone. The screen now showed the door slightly ajar. Rain blowing inside. I turned. The real door was wide open. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of wet asphalt. No car in the parking lot. No headlights. Just rain. I ran to the door and slammed it shut, locking it with shaking hands. When I turned back toward the counter, I froze. He was standing there. Not on the monitor. In front of me. Exactly where the camera had shown him. His clothes were dry. His face expressionless. "I've been waiting," he said quietly. His voice sounded wrong, like it was echoing from somewhere deeper. I stumbled backward, grabbing the phone to call 911. When I looked up again, he was gone. The store was empty. The monitors showed nothing unusual. The bathroom door was closed again. The rest of my shift passed without another incident. The police found no sign of forced entry. No car on the cameras. No record of anyone coming in. But when my manager reviewed the footage later, she called me into her office. At 3:12 a.m., the cameras glitched for exactly 6 seconds. In those 6 seconds, every camera showed the same image. Me standing alone at the counter, and directly behind me someone watching. At 2:43 a.m., I watched myself standing somewhere I wasn't, and I was smiling. I worked overnight security at a small office complex on the edge of town, 3 buildings, mostly empty after 6 p.m. Connected by enclosed hallways and monitored by a dozen cameras. My shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and most nights were painfully quiet. The security office was a small room on the first floor of Building B, lit only by the glow of the monitors. There were 12 feeds in total, ranged in a grid. Camera 4 covered a restricted hallway in Building C, an area used for file storage and server access. No one had clearance to be there overnight except maintenance, and they always signed in. Around 2:30 a.m., I was halfway through a cup of stale coffee when I noticed something on camera 4. Someone was standing at the far end of the hallway. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light. The hallway lights were dimmed overnight, casting long shadows, but the shape was unmistakable, human, tall, still. I leaned closer to the screen. The figure wasn't moving. Just standing there, facing the camera. My pulse quickened. No one should have been in that building. I grabbed my radio. "Control to any units in Building C," I said, even though I knew I was the only one on duty. Silence answered back. I checked the other cameras. The main entrance to Building C was locked. No movement in the lobby. No doors opening. Camera 4 still showed the figure. I zoomed in. The image pixelated slightly, but I could make out dark clothing. Arms at the sides. Head tilted slightly downward, watching. I stood up, the chair wheels squeaking loudly against the tile floor. My footsteps echoed as I left the security office. The air felt colder there. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. As I approached the restricted hallway, my stomach twisted with dread. I turned the corner slowly. It was empty, completely empty. The long corridor stretched ahead, file room doors shut. Server room access panel dark, no movement, no shadows. I stepped into the hallway. My shoes squeaking faintly against the polished floor. "Security," I called out. "If anyone's here, identify yourself." Nothing. The silence pressed in on me. I walked all the way to the end of the hall, checking each door. All locked, all secure. I even checked the ceiling tiles for signs of tampering. Nothing. I told myself it had to be a glitch. Cameras malfunction sometimes. Trying to shake the uneasy feeling crawling up my spine, I turned and headed back to the security office. The moment I stepped inside and looked at the monitors, my blood ran cold. Camera 4 still showed someone standing in the hallway, but it wasn't the same position as before. Now the figure was closer to the camera, standing roughly where I had been a few seconds ago. I stared at the screen. The person on camera 4 was wearing my uniform. Same dark jacket, same patch on the shoulder, same stance. It was me, standing in the middle of the restricted hallway. Facing the camera, I slowly looked down at myself. I was in the security office. I looked back at the monitor. The version of me on camera 4 didn't move. Then, slowly, it raised its head and smiled. I don't smile much. I have a crooked front tooth that I'm self-conscious about. The thing on the screen smiled wide. Perfect teeth. My heart pounded so hard it made my vision blur. I stumbled backward, nearly knocking over my chair. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." I looked at the other camera feeds. On camera 2, which covered the hallway outside the security office, I saw something that made my knees go weak. The door to the security office was closed, and I was standing outside it, facing inward, watching. I whipped around. The door behind me was open, empty hallway. When I looked back at the monitors, the version of me on camera 2 was still there, still standing outside the office. But now it was raising its hand, slowly, as if to knock. 3 soft taps echoed through the room. Not from the hallway, from the inside of the office door. I stumbled back until my shoulders hit the wall. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The version of me on camera 4 began walking toward the camera. Each step matched the sound of footsteps I could now hear in the hallway outside the office. Slow. Measured. The camera angle on camera 4 shifted slightly, as if someone had adjusted it manually. The smiling version of me leaned in close to the lens. The feed cut to static. All the monitors flickered at once, then returned to normal. The hallways were empty. The security office door was open, and I was alone. I didn't finish my shift. I left and never came back. The company told me later that the cameras had glitched for about 30 seconds around to 47 a.m. But here's the part that still keeps me awake. When they reviewed the footage, camera 4 never showed anyone in the hallway. It showed me, standing there alone, smiling at nothing. The first time I heard my own call sign come through the radio, I thought it was feedback. The second time, it answered a question I hadn't asked yet. I worked night patrol for a small private security company contracted to watch over an industrial park. 12 warehouses, mostly storage and distribution centers, spread across a few quiet blocks. After midnight, it was dead. No employees, no deliveries, just the wind and the hum of distant highway traffic. On weeknights, I was usually the only unit on duty. My call sign was Unit 12. Dispatch sat in a small office 20 miles away, monitoring alarms and logging patrol check-ins. We used basic two-way radios. Nothing fancy. Nothing that should have been complicated. The shift started normally. I checked in at 10 p.m., did my first perimeter sweep, and parked near Warehouse C to finish some paperwork. The night was cold, the kind where your breath fogs up the windshield if you crack a window. At 12:47 a.m., dispatch came over the radio. Unit 12, status check. I grabbed the mic. Unit 12, all clear. There was a brief pause, then the radio crackled again. Unit 12, copy that. I frowned. That wasn't dispatch's voice. It was mine. Same tone, same cadence. Slight rasp at the end of the sentence. I sat up straight. Dispatch, say again. A few seconds passed. Unit 12, I didn't repeat. Dispatch replied. You're the only one responding. A chill ran through me. Did anyone else key up? I asked. Negative, she said. You're the only active unit. I told myself it was interference. Radios picked up weird signals sometimes. Maybe another company using a similar frequency. I resumed my patrol, headlights cutting across empty loading docks and chain-link fences. At 1:18 a.m., I drove past Warehouse F and noticed a side gate slightly ajar. Dispatch, Unit 12, I said, lifting the mic. I've got a gate open at F. Go in to check it out. Before dispatch could respond, the radio clicked. Unit 12, I've got a gate open at F. Go in to check it out. My voice. Clearer this time. Closer. I froze, hand still gripping the mic. Dispatch, I whispered. Static. Then dispatch came through, voice strained. Unit 12, was that you twice? No, I said. That wasn't me. Silence filled the channel. The wind rattled the open gate as I stepped out of the vehicle. The metal creaked softly, swinging in the breeze. I scanned the area with my flashlight. Nothing moved beyond the beam. The radio hissed at my shoulder. Unit 12, proceed inside. I didn't say that. Dispatch didn't say that. It was the same voice, mine but lower, slower. Dispatch, confirm that transmission, I demanded. Long pause. I didn't transmit, she said quietly. My pulse hammered in my ears. Shut down the channel. Said. Switch to backup frequency. Copy, she replied. We switched. For a moment, everything was quiet. I exhaled shakily and stepped closer to the warehouse door. The building loomed above me. Dark windows reflecting my flashlight back at me like dull eyes. The backup channel crackled. Unit 12. I'm inside. My heart stopped. That transmission hadn't come from my radio. It hadn't even clicked. In my hand. Dispatch, I said, voice tight. Tell me that wasn't real. Her reply came in a whisper. We're tracking your GPS. And there are 2 signals. The cold seemed to sink through my uniform straight into my bones. 2, I repeated. 1 at your patrol car, she said. And 1 inside warehouse if the warehouse door was locked. I'd checked it. The radio crackled again. Footsteps echoed faintly through the speaker. Then my voice, breathless and slightly distorted. Unit 12 to dispatch. Found something. I backed away from the warehouse, scanning the darkness around me. Dispatch, cut all channels, I said. Now, the radio fell silent. No static. No wind. Just dead air. I got back into my patrol car, locked the doors, and watched the warehouse through the windshield. 5 minutes passed. 10. Nothing moved. Then, slowly, the warehouse's interior lights flickered on. One by one. From the far end of the building. Approaching the door. I didn't wait. I put the car in reverse and peeled out of the lot, tires squealing against the pavement. My radio remained silent the entire drive back to the main gate. When I reached it, dispatch finally came through again. Unit 12, I'm here, I said. She hesitated. Your GPS signal inside warehouse F just stopped. I swallowed. Stopped how? Like it shut off, she said. Or like it left the area. I never went back to that site. The company told me later there were no signs of forced entry at warehouse F. No alarms triggered. No record of a second GPS device issued under my name. But sometimes, when I'm driving late at night and the road is empty, I hear a faint crackle from the old radio. I never turned in. And every once in a while a voice that sounds exactly like mine checks in. Unit 12, all clear.